Hello. If you didn't know, comedian and podcast host Marc Maron is currently in a feud with fellow comedian and podcast host Joe Rogan. Marc Maron has been going on a rampage and completely trashing Joe Rogan and other comedians and podcast hosts. And I have an opinion on it. So today, I'm going to give my 2 cents on the current feud. But first, I'd like to tell you about my brand new merchandise line. My new merch line is called HyperFox, and right now we're featuring a few designs, a couple of simple little things that I made myself. I designed the current designs on the bunch of merch that you see on the website. I drew the foxes and made the logos. I'm really happy with it. I'm pretty proud of it. So if you like anything that you see on the website, please stop by and pick something up. We'll feature new designs from other artists as well. No design will stay on the website for too long. So if you see something you like, grab it while you can. Thanks for listening. On with the video. Now, let's just get this out of the way before we get into it. And let me apologize again to Joe Rogan for making him cry.
I saw a video today of a boxing match between a father and a son. It made me so sad. And the father's kind of jacked, and he could punch. He knows how to box.
Thank you for saying I'm a good boxer. And I apologize for making you sad.
It made me so sad.
So basically, what is happening right now is Marc Maron is saying he doesn't like what Joe Rogan and other people like him have done to comedy.
The thing with Joe,
Yeah.
my idea of what he's done to comedy,
Sure.
and I don't think it's great. I think that it's tribalized, and I think that, you know, he's created a sort of army of people that think they know comedy, but they only know a specific thing, and what they think is good is not necessarily good. It may be what they're like.
I can't agree or disagree with his opinion because it's his opinion, but I can say I don't think he has done anything to comedy because comedy has always been a billion different things. There's always going to be alternative comedy, mainstream comedy, dark comedy, jock comedy. But I think what Marc Maron is saying, or the sentiment that's coming out from his complaint, is that he doesn't like that what's popular right now isn't what comedy wasn't what used to be popular. Right now, it's sort of like mean-spirited, insensitive jokes taking advantage of vulnerable people. And Marc Maron doesn't like that. I think a lot of us would agree with that. That's not really my type of comedy, but at the same time, stuff like that's always been there. So I wouldn't say comedy has changed. I would say what is being featured right now in the comedy world has changed, but things ebb and flow. And I don't think it's going to be like this forever.
The nature of the comedy business is fragmented and some of it's tribalized, but there used to be a lot more weirdos around who were kind of exciting and interesting and took it a different place. I would argue with just talky talk comedy, there's not that many people bringing it to a different place, dude.
Right.
I wouldn't really ever expect weird comedy like Marc Maron references. He likes comedy being for the sensitive weirdos. I as well like that type of comedy, but I never in my life, I've built my career on weird comedy. I'm from the Upright Citizens Brigade. That's where I fit in. I've done shows at the Comedy Studio, the Comedy Store, all the big main places. And what always worked best for me all around the country is in the more alternative indie places because what I do is so different. So I feel like I can, in a way, relate to Marc Maron, and a lot of my friends have been on Marc Maron's show. So I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, I never really thought alternative comedy was the main thing. So I don't know what he's really upset about. I think he's maybe just voicing his discontent toward what is being featured right now because it is actually having real world effects and influencing a lot of people out there who then go and vote. It seems like that's what is bothering him. Mark was on the Bad Friends podcast and he said something that I liked. He said, when are the jokes about the vulnerable people? I'm semi-quoting him here. When are the jokes about the vulnerable people going to stop? When are they going to run out of this type of material?
And like immigrants, okay, well, they're being ripped away from their homes, and and they're, you know, and they're all terrified, and okay, so that's done. When do you stop with the jokes?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to pick on the vulnerable and the marginalized, but I mean, they're down.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
they're down.
why do you got to keep hitting them unless you're a hack? Now, there's a question.
Wow. Mark is basically calling Joe Rogan and people to do comedy like him hacks. But I will say, I do feel that currently the world is in a mode right now, or was. I think we're coming out of it. The world was in a mode the past like 4 or so years where it was becoming okay to be rude again and say the R word about mentally handicapped people. Like, that is what's funny again, or trendy and cool, because it's like, oh, you couldn't do that for so long and now we're going to do it and we don't care. I think that is what Mark is upset about, which I think is valid. But I can't imagine it lasting very long. It seems like it's kind of on its way out again. It was a short-lived thing, but we'll see. Something that I will comment on in regards to mainstream comedy, I always prided myself as a comedian or a comedic actor. Every time I did routines every single Friday for like 10 plus years at the Upright Citizens Brigade. Every Friday night, I would do Not Too Shabby and many other shows. And everything I ever wrote for live stage, for tours, for TV pilots, for TV shows, my YouTube videos, everything I've written, I always prided myself for not swearing. Not that you don't have to not swear. I do like swears. I think a lot of things are hilarious when people are swearing. I just never swore in my life. It was a little hang up I had in my head where I could never let myself write something someone else would write. And swearing was like the easiest thing. Everyone had swears in their material. Everyone had like blue comedy, blue humor. And I was like, it's too easy. If you say a swear, you say something perverted, you'll get a laugh. That's like a cop-out for me. And I always prided myself to be able, I always thought it's impressive if I could make someone laugh without doing what someone else would do. I think it's impressive and commendable for someone to be truly unique, or try at least to be very different in what they do. And I'm saying this because I don't think what is being considered as like the current comedy scene will last forever, because I do think people look for something unique. I think we're just in a phase, and the weird stuff will come back, and more unique people who have a different point of view will start to shine again. But at the same time, enjoy what you want. Hopefully what you want to enjoy and what you want to make doesn't take advantage of people who can't defend themselves, and you're not writing cheap material that just abuses others verbally.
Well, and, you know, Rogan and Hinchcliffe and, you know, just a lot of these people just locked into this anti-woke thing. But now, so they're using the same language, which is anti-woke, to dismantle all progressive institutions. And, you know, whether you like it or not, or whether that's not what you signed up for, you know, you tied yourself to that horse, right? You can backpedal all you want, but this is the reality, is that, you know, democracy was squashed because of, you know, the policy now of using anti-woke to dismantle the liberal democratic state is something you didn't shut up about. Yeah, maybe it wasn't the same thing. Well, I just wanted to say the art. Yeah, so that's who I'm talking about. And look, you know, I think a lot of them were just like wanted to land on the side where they could earn a living.
In 2011, Joe and Mark actually had a conversation. Mark actually voiced his disdain for Joe and told him how he felt about people like Joe, like these athlete comedians coming into the scene. And he said, who the heck are these guys coming in here? This isn't the place for them. I don't like what they're doing. And then Joe actually understood where he was coming from, and he related to him, and he expressed that he would feel very similarly if he was in Mark's position. So they had a pretty cordial conversation. And I'm thinking, okay, if they could do that then, why can't they just do that now? If Mark's having such a problem, why doesn't he just talk to Joe? And why don't they get through this, or at least let Mark get through it? Because it doesn't seem like Joe is even thinking about this.
You know, when I first saw you, I had this problem with guys who were, you know, athletically oriented. or had some sort of athletic nature about them before they came into comedy. And I remember that you and Kevin Flynn, he was like a soccer guy.
Yeah.
And you were a kickboxing champion. And there was part of me that was like, this is not for them. This is not their world. Why are they here? Why don't they stay in their competitive world?
Oh, that's silly.
Well, of course it's silly. But you were sort of a cocky fuck then, weren't you?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, if you're not around someone like that and all of a sudden you're around some guy and you hear this guy's a martial arts champion and now he's doing comedy,
yeah,
I would probably feel the same thing. Like, this is this fucking guy invading our spot and ruining our vibe.
My suggestion, as the dad of the internet, again, sorry, Joe.
Okay, now I'm not sad anymore.
My suggestion is to tell these two men to just have a conversation. Just talk about it. I feel that any two people who are in a feud do have the ability to come together and make amends if both people are emotionally mature, level-headed, and don't have some sort of an agenda. The only desire that they can have going into this conversation is to truly be understood and repair the relationship. If that's the case, then I think the two of them should have a conversation. It doesn't even have to be on a podcast. It could just be a personal thing between the two comedy pals, if they even ever were pals. Or they could do it on a podcast. Because as the two most popular podcast hosts in the world, that would get some pretty good views. And I'm sure that's what both of them would want. So we're just going to have to stay tuned to see what happens. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.